Good morning, and welcome to the Lone Star Weekly Business Hour. Your host, Rick Schissler, is a Silver Fox advisor who personally has over 40 years of experience as a serial entrepreneur. So sit back, pull out your pad and pencil, and get ready to take notes as we join Rick Schissler in his Lone Star Weekly Business Hour.
Good morning. This is Rick Schissler, your Silver Fox advisor, welcoming you to the Weekly Business Hour. We have a wonderful show lined up for you today. Hopefully everybody enjoyed a healthy and safe holiday. And we also I'd like to take a moment talking about the 4th of July. And I kind of felt this year it was a great celebration. Everywhere I went, I saw people with the flags out, wonderful fireworks show. And I want to take a moment to thank particularly the City of Willis for having Lone Star Internet Radio as a part of your 4th of July celebration. It was a great family event that was enjoyed by over 3,000 folks back on June 28th, and we were excited to be there. And I encourage you, remember to always check our website at www.irlonestar.com for upcoming events that you and your family can enjoy. Well, now on to the show. As you know, I usually start with a couple pieces of advice or news and things that are happening around the country or opportunities. And in doing some reading this week, I came across a couple interesting articles and ideas that I really want to share with you. And one of them kind of hits home. It's an article about older entrepreneurs, meaning older folks like yours truly, that go through life perhaps in the corporate world. And we get to our, say, late 40s, early 50s, 60s, wherever it is. And for one reason or another, we get an idea to start a company. It could have been we were downsized out. That was kind of popular 5 to 10 years ago. Or we just finally say, hey, we've done well, we've put some money aside, and we want to try something on our own. And let me tell you, this is a growing trend. According to the article that I picked up on, and it was in the Wall Street Journal small business section by Annie Tergeson back on June 29th, there's a growing number of people age 55 to 64 that are becoming entrepreneurs. In fact, according to a recent Kauffman Foundation study, they represent over 23% of the entrepreneurs who launched businesses in 2013. And that's compared to 14% back in 1996. So it's on the upswing for us older people to go out and get in business for ourselves. But being an older person, as compared to a Mark Zuckerberg, say, that starts Zuckerman, that starts a Facebook, we have some special challenges, and that's what I really want to talk about, and that's what Annie talked about in her article quite a bit. And the fact is that entrepreneurship has kind of become the new passport for funding our longevity, and that's something that I know I'm dealing with my parents now. They're in their 80s. Their parents lived into their 80s, but also my parents potentially live into their 90s, and perhaps we will live into our 100s. So reality is that maybe we haven't done enough to put enough savings aside, and every statistic I've seen shows that we haven't done that. So the idea is, okay, I'll go start a business. I'll work for 10, 15 years. I'll build up some equity in that business. I'll pull some money out of that business. And I guess done properly, that's a way to develop a little more of the savings that you're going to need when you finally do retire. And interesting, another report, this one from Nesta, United Kingdom Foundation, found that 70% of the startups founded by people age 50 and older last more than 3 years, compared to 28% of those that are younger than 50. Now, that's an interesting bit of information. What causes it, it didn't say in the article, but I would think in reality, when you're 50 versus a younger person, you've got a little more wisdom. You've got a little more at risk, as pointed out in the article, because we are older. A couple things come into play. One is we don't have a long time to make it work. So, and we also can't afford really a failure, so we tend to be a little more risk adverse. Doesn't mean we still can't start a business, because there's a lot of proven businesses out there, franchises, which we've talked about on this show several times, that can help you start a business. But that's a really resounding statistic. 70% versus 28% are still in business 3 years later. That's huge. And I would personally attribute that to the fact that we are different as we're older, and potentially we're more geared for the success and don't take some of the risk and other things that go on. So the encouragement there is, if you're going to start a business and you're older, you got the knowledge, you should have gained the experience through your life's lessons and working for others, particularly normally at that point, whether it be in a corporate environment, small business environment. And the fact is that makes you a little more risk adverse. So you potentially will have the money, enough money to start the business, because we all know that's the number one reason that businesses fail is they don't have enough capital to make it through that first year, 2, 3 years, and they run out of capital and therefore fail simply for the lack of money. The other thing is we tend to be a little more conservative, and one of the things pointed out in the article that you can be more conservative if you need to reach out and borrow money versus going into the marketplace and borrowing money, say, at a bank, which is very difficult for anyone unless you have sterling credit and some kind of asset to put up. Look to family and friends. Well, that's always a suggestion for any entrepreneur. But when you're older, those resources tend to be a little larger. There's more money available because hopefully your family and friends are older and they've saved some money. So the idea that you involve them and even perhaps give them a small stake in the business, which in effect reduces your risk. The other thing that was mentioned, and I want to pass this on, and we've actually had people from the Small Business Administration on the station. They're a great resource for people who are starting the business, and they've got a lot of these small business development centers around the country and the college and universities. In fact, the Lone Star College system right here in Montgomery County has one of those centers, particularly in the Woodlands. It's fairly sizable, but I believe they also have established one, at least one individual up here in the Conroe area. So small business development centers, you can find them at Lone Star College as well as University of Houston and other places. These people can help you. They can guide you. They'll work with you on a business plan. They also have classes that are available so you can get the education that you may be lacking to start the business. And it is extremely important that you get as much general business education you can, because reality is most of us that are older have worked in a particular field. We don't have the broad-based education that one needs to be successful potentially in business. I mean, there are a lot of components to owning your own business, and you've got to be able to keep books. You've got to be able to account for things. You've got to be able to pay bills. Well, that's all falls in the general area of accounting. And then you've got to be able to sell. You've got to be able to deliver. You've got to be able to manufacture or deliver a service. I mean, there are a lot of balls in the air. So be sure you have a good general broad-based business background. And if you can get some education, and it's not expensive, a lot of these classes are even free. A lot of free advice at the Small Business Development Centers. Please, I encourage you to do so before you step out. So there we go. Us older people are not dead. We're really alive. We got opportunity out there, and starting a business, believe it or not, at 50, 60 years old is very, very doable. So I encourage it in all manner in speaking. The next thing I'd like to talk about, and this is something I've touched on indirectly in a couple of previous shows, but I came across again another bit of reading that really kind of summarized a lot of the things that I think and a lot of things that the Silver Foxes believe, and that is using advisors. Obviously, I'm self-serving in that statement because I am an advisor. I'm a mentor, consultant, primarily is what I like to think of myself. But a lot of people can use advice not only one-on-one, but an advisory board. Most small businesses are closely held, and they do not have an outside board. So they turn to an advisory board. And there's some things you can do that can make your advisory board, if you decide to put one together. And again, I would encourage you, particularly if you don't have a mentor, to think about doing an advisory board. Now, what does an advisory board look like? Basically 3 to 5 individuals that meet with you typically on a quarterly basis. It could be more often. It could be twice a year. But these people are giving information, confidential information about your business, your financials and whatnot, and they're asked to sit down with an agenda you create and go through and advise you on perhaps growth opportunities, to advise you about your financials, your expenses, to take a good hard look to do this. Now, let me run down some ideas or some steps that I would take. First of all, you need to look at yourself and where you might lack knowledge. And this is a real important step, hard for some people to do. Self-examine yourself, look in the mirror, and look for people who have knowledge that you don't have. Attract those kind of people to your board. Secondly, is the most ideal advisor obviously would have your best interest at heart, and so they're not afraid to give you advice. They're not afraid, in my words, to be blunt. They will tell you something even though you might not like it. And that's what you need to hear. The third thing you want to do is when you go out and recruit people, obviously these folks have got to be motivated. So leverage the network you have. You have an accountant, a CPA, you have a lawyer, I hope. Both of those things I feel are critical. Reach out to those people. You may want to include one of those type of people on your board. I personally don't like to have my own lawyer or my own CPA, but I like to have those people from those professions on my board. But look for people that not only have technical knowledge in their field, but people that have good chemistry that you feel comfortable with to bring in your board. If you haven't figured out yet, it takes some time to put this together. You have to be patient. You have to go about it. But once you get one or two people recruited, my experience has taught me that usually they lead to other people. And there are people who want to serve. Now, as far as paying these people, I personally encourage you to try to pay them some kind of stipend. You've got to give them something. Now, if you've got a product or a service that's attractive, you might trade and barter, if you will, and provide that service, provide them with some level or possibility of $100 free of service, something like that. But you've got to, I really believe, because you've got to get them vested so they take the time on their own time to prepare for these meetings, because these meetings can really, really make a difference in your business and how you grow and how your profitability shows up on the bottom line. I can't encourage it enough. Again, I am self-promoting in a sense that I believe in mentoring and consulting and helping people to talk about the areas particularly they're not good at, but an advisory board, a little more formal, but a good way to do it. I want to stop for a moment and kind of take a moment to introduce our guest today, and I'm going to ask our guest what he thinks about advisors and whatnot, if you don't mind. So our guest today, and I'm really pleased to have him. He and I have been chatting ahead of time, and his name is Phil Sanchez. He's the CEO of Avantis Care. Phil, welcome to the program.
Thank you very much for having me.
Well, tell us, Phil, before we kind of get into all the formal information about you and your company, what do you think about advisors or consultants? What's your general idea about it?
Well, I think when I was initially listening to what you were discussing about the advisory board, it made me think of a quote that I love to always express to everyone. That is, if you're the smartest person in the room, you're in the wrong room. Because inevitably, you have to surround yourself with people that you just mentioned. You have to have that support system, those resources, people that can engage you to think outside the box and ensure that you're doing things that are properly going to make you succeed in your business. So I'm a big advocate of having those components in our own corporation as well. So we have our legal, our accounting, everything surrounding us, and even some of our own clients that we have actually engaged them to get a better understanding of what they are really looking for. So I 100% agree to that.
Well, first of all, I like the fact that you're agreeing with me. Thank you. But ladies and gentlemen, understand that wasn't pre-planned. But no, Phil, you hit the nail on the head. And that was the point I was trying to make to our audience, was that you need to seek outside counsel. Mm-hmm. And so many times I find, particularly startups, they sort of inbred themselves, and they're focused on getting the product out or making the sale or whatever, and they don't take time to bring advice to the table, if you will, in a general sense.
Right.
So
I agree completely. You need that.
Well, there we are. We're gonna stop right there for a moment. We're gonna come back and do the formal introduction with Phil and let him tell us a little bit about himself and his company. So please stay with us, and we'll be right back with you after the break.
The East Texas Dream Center is in need of your help. We are a nonprofit Christian organization that houses women and children who are trying to get their lives back after being homeless, abused, or addicted. We are conveniently located at 301 South 1st Street, Conroe, Texas, 77301, right here in Montgomery County. Our needs are financial, and every needs of gasoline, cleaning supplies, laundry soap, Lysol, and whatever else God puts in your heart. To help our ladies and children, please consider a donation. You may visit our website at www.easttexasdreamcenter.org. Again, so you don't forget, it's www.easttexasdreamcenter.org. Donations are tax deductible. Remember what Jesus said, with God, nothing is impossible.
You're listening to Lone Star Internet Radio. Now for your daily weather report. Today is Monday, July 7th, 2014. Today's weather forecast: there's a 30% chance of showers and thunderstorms, mainly after 1 p.m., mostly cloudy with a high near 92. Later on tonight will be mostly cloudy with a low around 75.
This weather forecast is brought to you by Donna Wick Public Relations. You've seen the billboards. That's right, Wicked Publicity. Contact them today at 832-326-1965 and visit them at wickedpublicity.com.
Have you ever wandered around a parking lot trying to look like you actually know where you parked? Then you'll love the Mark and Cindy Show. If buying toilet paper with aloe vera is the most exciting thing you're going to do today, then you'll love the Mark and Cindy Show. Even if you haven't tweeted, you'll still love the Mark and Cindy Show.
How about twerking?
Ew, that was one step over the line, Mark.
Well, you said toilet paper.
Look, we want listeners to tune in to the Mark and Cindy Show at 10 o'clock every weekday morning here on Lone Star Internet Radio.
The Mark and Cindy Show, it's like visiting with your best friends for coffee, except we will never stiff you with a check.
And one of us always knows what she's talking about.
Well, okay, but it's still called the Mark and Cindy Show. You know that.
We'll see. The Mark and Cindy Show. Tune in to Lone Star Radio every weekday morning at 10 o'clock.
Welcome back to the Weekly Business Hour. This is Rick Schissler, your Silver Fox advisor, and as you heard at the end of the last segment, we're here with Phil Sanchez, CEO of Avantis Care, and we were talking about advisors, and Phil really had some good advice, and I'd like to back up now and kind of go back to where we are typically in the beginning. Phil, tell us a little bit about yourself and your company.
Yeah, I appreciate, again, being on the show as well. It's actually a wonderful forum for business owners or people wanting to get into it. My background is one which I've always had an entrepreneurial spirit. I've always wanted to get into the position of owning my own business. As most people, we start at the very bottom and work our way up. Throughout that, I've been in the healthcare industry for a little over 12 years now. I started from the very bottom and essentially learned my way through to get to the point where I am now, which our company is a healthcare consulting firm that provides resources for physicians in order to either, one, maximize their practice or generate new revenue cycles that they might not be integrated with currently. So with that availability now that we provide for our clients has allowed us to really have a good presence in the industry itself because of all the things that are currently going on in the healthcare industry. But again, starting from the very beginning, learning and really being someone who wants to engage in everything that is going on in the industry has allowed us to really get to this position now. So it's been, very exciting. But again, as someone and as a business owner, you still learning every day, to say the least. So it's just it's a great industry to be in, and we're continually looking for more success as we continually grow.
You said you've been in it 12 years, and I'm trying to think back, and all this turmoil, if you will, in the healthcare industry, without getting particular. I mean, you've taken on a heck of a challenge, but from chaos there's opportunity, right?
And that's exactly right. I think in any volatile industry there's always opportunity, and again, it's really to determine what that opportunity is. And I think that's why I've had the army men in the trenches, as being engaged in the industry for some time now, has allowed me really to see what's really going on. And as I've been able to view it firsthand, I've also seen what is needed, and not only from just my point of view, but just from the point of view of our clients and our clients' customers who they engage with. So being able to get the ideas from both of our clients and our customers that are engaged through our clients has allowed us to really identify certain opportunities in the marketplace.
Well, and I personally, if I can step aside, I think one of the great things in about your history, and I don't know whether you planned this or you're one of those visionaries that saw this coming, but to be new, if you will, and starting into a volatile market like that, I think has a lot of advantages versus being an old company trying to adjust to a volatile market.
Right.
I mean, do you find that?
I agree completely. I mean, there are companies that are always going to be in a position where they have to pivot their services in order to kind of, engage with what's going on in that industry. With us having the ability to be kind of a startup, as you would kind of say, with less than 2 years of the company, has allowed us to really take advantage of what we're seeing in today's marketplace to adapt quickly and really provide those resources to our clients, which again are physicians. So if we can just engage with them and show what our products and services are, which really range from a huge A to Z type program, but it allows us to really give something of value to them with our services.
Let me ask you, one of the things I noticed when I looked at your website, I saw the words managed services I think that's the terminology.
Correct.
Tell us what that means.
Right. Again, so one thing that we've noticed from our clients with physicians is that at the end of the day, they really just want to provide great health care. And they get inundated with a lot of the administrative side of things. And from our perspective of being able to be, their main go-to for all the administrative services, the billing, the managed services, which would integrate the accounting, the customer service, protocols. Again, it's a huge spectrum, but it allows us to kind of tap in and provide those resources to the physicians right then, so then they can focus on specifically what they want to do, and that's treat patients.
Well, it sounds like to me in understanding your business, and I think this model is a model that's kind of come and gone in various forms in other industries, and
Absolutely.
And now I'm learning about the healthcare industry. But you basically are taking over the part of the front office, back office, obviously, and allowing, in this case, the caregiver, the doctor, physician, to do their job. In other words, what they're really good at. Is that a fair assessment?
A perfect assessment of it. And you nailed it too, because the problem is with healthcare is that we actually have been a very archaic company or industry with the idea of, just they provided care and they really didn't engage in other, facets of the company, because they are, physicians are entrepreneurs themselves. They're business owners. The problem is every other industry has already been engaging these types of technologies, these types of protocols, these types of services. And, healthcare is just now getting to that point where they're starting to integrate these things. And since we've been able to view, and we are a younger company, so we're willing to adapt to these newer technologies, has allowed us to integrate these into certain physicians' practices, which just makes them much more effective and efficient.
Well, it's interesting. I think I mentioned to you, my father-in-law was a physician, a surgeon, and he's been retired for 20 years. But when we talk about that period in his life, he says, I'm just glad I retired because I don't have to deal with Medicare anymore. And so now here was a physician dealing with an administrative issue. And boy, I bet in those 20 years it's gotten a lot more complicated than he dealt with.
It has. And again, I'll be very, nice with some of my terminology in discussing, what's going on with the insurance side of things and how it can affect one's care or prohibit someone from getting the care they need. And again, that's why I think it's important that we engage these new technologies to ensure that our patient care is still there and still providing everything that is needed. But again, 20 years ago compared to today, it's night and day. It really is. It's changed. And the problem is that in 20 years in business in general, technologies have been growing, leaps and bounds. And unfortunately, healthcare has not been one that has really been engaged in those technologies and hasn't had that opportunity to have the growth and continually keep with that patient care that it should have been. So now we're having to kind of backtrack everything, and now that's why you see more than ever there's huge startup companies in the industry, because there is a need at the end of the day for this type of service. So again, we're trying to differentiate ourselves to ensure that we provide, these types of services that we know that can be successful for our practice.
Well, and again, I'm a proponent. I will share this with you of managed services. And again, I'm learned from you and your company in the healthcare field. But like I have a client that's in the IT business, service business, and he changed his model to a managed service model. So generally the same thing. His clients pay him a flat fee, and he just takes care of that. And his whole thing is, I don't sell service, I don't sell repair, I sell uptime. My clients just forget about it. In fact, one of his biggest challenges is making his clients aware that he's there.
Right.
Because he does a wonderful job with his infrastructure, and they never know he's there because it's all taking place behind the curtain.
Right? Yeah.
And that's what it's good. The phone doesn't ring. Right.
Absolutely, and that's the thing is, if you want to incorporate a system or service or managed services that allow it to be almost automated in a way of that the care or the service is being provided for your clients. And again, that's a wonderful issue to have, to know that they don't even know he's there because it's running so automated and so streamlined. And that's what we all want to get in business, for our clients.
But it also creates a communication challenge for him to let him know that he is alive and he is doing something.
And that is a very valuable point, and that's why I think communication is key also as well, to engage your clients, whether it's something going on or it's not, just to keep them in the know. And that's what we do as well. We always engage our clients every time, whether it's through a newsletter, through communicating with various topics or just things that are changing in the industry. We're a big component in letting them know that we are there. But again, that that we also can be a resource for them in addition to what we provide as well. And that's another thing that we always want to be, as a resource.
Right. To me, that phone call, and again, I came from a problem-solving generation, but the phone call, I want to, or contact, however you make it, say, I want to make an appointment and see you and talk about what's going right.
Right, exactly, yeah, exactly.
And they're like, what? What do you mean?
Yeah, they were confused by that notion, but yeah, it's wonderful to engage in with your clients and get their ideas too as well.
Well, and I think that's a change that's taking place in the general business model, is what you're talking about, is that all of us in any business almost should look around us and see if we can take in third-party certain services so we can really focus to stay competitive.
Right.
And it's tremendous. Ladies and gentlemen, we're going to take a short break now, and when we come back, we're going to talk to Phil a little bit, maybe get some business advice from him for those of you who are in business or even thinking about business, some general business advice. Hopefully that would be helpful to you. So please stay with us, and we'll be back in just a moment.
At Jazzy Junk, volunteers reclaim, restore, and recycle. Jazzy Junk is a non-profit resale storefront where you will discover wonderful, unique finds at very affordable prices on furniture, antiques, books, art, home decor, and more. When you shop Jazzy Junk, you support New Danville, a community for adults with developmental disabilities. We receive new donations daily, so plan a visit to Jazzy Junk today to find that perfect item or gift. Our motto is here today, gone today. So remember to hurry in and shop often for the best selection. Jazzy Junk is located in the outlets at Conroe on League Line Road and I-45 North. Call 936-441-4500 or visit our website, jazzyjunk.org. That's JUNQUE for more information and store hours.
Hi, I'm Joyce with the Corner Pub in downtown Conroe. We're located at the corner of Simonton and North Main, just across the street from the courthouse. The week starts off Monday with open mic, hosted by Alan, and Tuesday nights open mic, hosted by Jeremy Bankhead. And on Thursday evening, McFarland Jams. There's nightly drink specials available every night, all night. And don't forget, live entertainment every weekend. To see a full list of events, visit our website at thecornerpubinconroe.com. So come join us at the Corner Pub, where the deli is open late.
Tune in at 3 o'clock every Wednesday for Aperture and Shutter Speed with me, Tom Moore of TR Moore Photos.
And me, Dick.
If you are an amateur or expert, or if you haven't ever picked up an SLR camera before, Aperture and Shutter Speed is a show for anyone who loves photography and film.
Join the conversation with us by calling in or emailing us your questions. If you want to know what's coming up on Aperture and Shutter Speed, just look up our show page on irlonestar.com or look us up on Facebook.
Join us every Wednesday at 3 p.m. for Aperture and Shutter Speed, and remember,
take your lens cap off.
This is Rick Schissler, your Silver Fox advisor, welcoming you back to the Weekly Business Hour. We've been visiting with Phil Sanchez, who is the CEO of Avantis Care, talking about managed services and how Phil's company provides those to the doctors and physicians and their groups, which allow them to practice what they're best at. And I'm a big proponent. We should do what we're best at and leave the details to others. So this fits right in with my personal philosophy. Phil, I want to pick your brain a little bit, though, in this next segment and talk about business in general. First of all, though, I want to share a story that you shared at the break about how you actually got into business. That's an interesting story you have there.
Yeah.
Please share it with us.
Yeah. So again, I was kind of expressing how I got into the healthcare industry, and I actually was a big golfer. I played golf my whole life, and went on a scholarship to play golf. And in my mind, I thought, I'm going to be a pro golfer. Then the realization of what occurred next in my life totally changed everything. So I unfortunately hopped in the wrong vehicle, passenger in a car, and we got in an automobile accident. That point moving forward, I started to have to go through rehabilitation services. So I went through the physical therapy, and I went through all the different components of rehab to get back into, my mind still golfing shape. So inevitably, I just got engaged with all the healthcare services, the processes, all the things that occurred, and I was really baffled. And that's when I started having a passion for healthcare in a sense. And then, as I pursued more of the academic side of things, of getting into, marketing and business, I still realized that I enjoyed the healthcare side of things. So it was remarkable how, life doesn't always plan out the way you want it, and you have to adapt. And you have to adapt whether it's in life or in business. But again, it changed my life. But I think, I'm here because of what occurred, and being able to engage throughout the services, and then understanding business aspects of it has just been, something I would have never really imagined, but here I am. So.
Well, you got an insider's look, though, too, and that was probably invaluable, right?
Absolutely. I mean, you look at how the process was, but again, just like you had mentioned, from your father's perspective of how healthcare changed 20 years ago, again, that was many moons ago, and the treatment I got then is different than what we get now. So again, it's wonderful to see how things can change.
Yeah, especially in the healthcare industry, they change very quickly.
Very, very quickly.
Well, let me ask you, you've got, how many employees roughly does your company have today?
With all of our subsidiaries, we're at 42 now, believe it or not.
Good. A lot of good growth. And that leads to the challenges. What, if you would, share with us the biggest challenge you have every day?
I think the biggest challenge is really working with our employees to not only engage, their aspects of what is needed from us as managers and as owners to ensure that they're maximizing their time and really engaging of what their responsibilities and roles are. So again, finding the balance to ensure that we are providing the necessary resources and services for our own employees to make them be better than they already are. And that's what I think everyone wants to try to do, is maximize their employees to be superstars. Because I think everyone, as an owner personally, I'm always wondering, like, man, if I could just clone myself and have 10 of me, imagine what we could do. And the reality is, I've realized from my role of not only being someone who's trying to create businesses or create ideas, is also to engage my employees to think just like I do, and put themselves in a position and to be better than what they might not even know that they could be. So it's trying to be supportive to the employees as well. And so I find that's always a very, very unique challenge that most people might not even know that's there.
Well, it's interesting. One of the things I was taught, as I mentioned to you off air, I grew up in a family business, and one of the things my father taught me, he says, the most important position in our company is a receptionist. And, of course, blank stare, what do you mean receptionist? Because we had quite a few employees at one point. He says, no, they're typically the first point of contact for a lot of customers. And it's the lowest paying job, and it's the most important. He says, you've got to really look hard. You've got to find someone that just fits. Square peg, square hole. And it was a very interesting lesson, and they worked very hard and eventually found someone who stayed for years.
Right.
It was just the right person, liked just being there and answering that phone and communications. But what an important, and a lot of people, they just blow off the receptionist position in their company, for an example, and they don't encourage, but yet that is first point of contact.
100% right. And that's the thing. Everyone that is in your stable, all your employees, they're a reflection of you and your business. So inevitably, everyone's a vital role. The receptionist, I agree 100%. That's your first point of contact. And to relate that to physicians, that's why it's imperative that they have those solid key employees there. Because again, the receptionist is the reflection of that physician. So if they're not answering the phone, or they're not engaging with the patients correctly, or their customer service isn't there, it's a reflection of that physician's office. And that's unfortunate that we all get bundled as one, but the reality is that we are all one. So again, going back even to your statement earlier about the advisory board, how you had mentioned about having someone that's vested and allows them to have a better connection to your company, and that makes them feel like they're a part of that team. That's the same philosophy that we use with our employees. We get them to a point where they can, as they grow with the company, they get an opportunity to be vested with our organization as well. So there's that incentivizing factor. And I think that's another big key word in business. You have to incentivize, and whether it's employees or your customers.
That's interesting, because you carry it over to the customer, and I think that's a little bit different than a lot of people have thought about. They incentivize the customer to do business with you and to continue that relationship, and I really believe in that. But you don't see it very often.
No, and that's the thing. Your best referrals are your customers. I mean, you always have to ask them, even if, and that's one thing, again, if a business tip would be that when I engage anyone in reference to that, it could be a potential customer, I always ask whether it works for them or does not, do you know of someone else that this might be a good fit for, that you could, refer me to? And that's one thing that people sometimes forget, that a no could lead to something else, even though that, you hear no and most people run away, when in fact, I think that gives you an opportunity to either understand what you could provide that would make that turn to a yes, or ask, that specific person, do you know someone who could take advantage of our services? So that's another big thing that I would always suggest.
Yeah, no, I think that's great. It should be part of every general communication plan for every business, regardless of how small or large it is. Let me ask you this. You mentioned or alluded earlier that you're in a competitive industry, so to speak. I mean, and you're in a business that's volatile. How do you set yourself apart, your company, apart from your competitors?
I think the biggest thing that we provide, to be quite honest, is that we are always looking for what we can expand upon. So technologies for us is something that's huge. I mean, we have a subsidiary company that we launched that is MD Reach, which inevitably is going to totally change the face of healthcare in our eyes, and from our board of advisors as well. We believe that this is going to be something that's going to be huge, to be able to provide, telemedicine, the wearable technology, outcome-based information for patients to, look for providers who have better outcomes than most. So again, I think with us being a new company, a young company who's willing to put in the time and effort to take advantage of what the technologies are there, allows us to differentiate us from other, companies that are similar in our industry. And again, I think that's something that, personally I wasn't looking at, but again, I realized that, I surround myself with good people that can realize that we need to move in certain directions, and then believing in that and taking that, everyone always says you got to take a little leap of faith in business. So we're definitely taking that. So I think that really separates us.
That's interesting, and I applaud you for that, because you're obviously, there's a risk factor in there, I sense, as I listen to all those exciting things, and you guys are really stepping out, sounds like, to move your smaller compared to the bigger competitors that you mentioned. And I think that's what's great about being small, right, is you can be nimble.
Exactly. The best thing is they never see you coming.
Well, let me ask you along those lines, and again, I don't want to pry into any proprietary information, as I always tell people, where do you see your company 3 to 5 years down the road?
That's a great question, because I think that's what you have to have goals. And so the funny thing is I could tell you very, very specifically where we're going to be in 3 to 5 years, because I've written them out. And I think that's one thing that all business owners should do, is write out their goals. So in 3 years, our goal is to open up 3 more additional markets. So right now we're in Texas, Arizona, and Florida. We have plans to open up an additional couple more states in New York and Tennessee. So we're trying to expand our services on a national level. So in 3 years, our goal is to open up those 2 state markets. And then in our 5-year goal plan, our goal is to actually expand to all of the West Coast on the national side. So again, and we feel like our services are there. And then again, for our launch of MD Reach will be completed in 24 months, which will then expand upon all of our envisions of integrating this technology across the board. So that's our big plan, just national growth.
Sounds like you've got a lot of work to do.
Yes. And again, that is an understatement, to say the least.
Yeah. Well, that's great. That's fantastic. You're using what's out in front of you. And this is kind of a simple question, but I think it's one that many businesses, particularly smaller ones, struggle. So I'm going to pick your brain, because based on what I understand, you're kind of the business development marketing guy anyway. Share some wisdom with our listeners, if you would, about how you market your business, what they should do to market their businesses.
Yeah, marketing is a huge component to what we even tell our own clients, that you have to be able to market, but market effectively. And it's very different in healthcare too, because when you market, you can't necessarily, from a provider's perspective, say, hey, we're, get one spine, get the next one free. There's no actual call to action in healthcare. So the marketing is extremely crucial. For us, how we market our company is by essentially marketing to our physicians with the ability to understand that there is a company out there that, believe it or not, can provide you with all these services that can make you be what you've always envisioned. And that's a medical provider. That's someone that treats patients, and leave everything else to us. So we express on our marketing how we can empower the healthcare industry by providing these resources, by providing these services. And that's our big, brand marketing that we incorporate with Avantis Healthcare. Again, marketing, I come from a marketing background, so again, I'm very passionate about that, and I understand the importance of doing that, marketing and advertising. For business owners, they have to understand what their brand is and ensure that all their marketing, even from their collateral pieces, are aligned with what they want their reflection to be in the business world. So again, you throw out all of your stuff, it better be unison, it better look like it's your company without even having to express it verbally. So it's very crucial that you have that. And again, we provide those services, so it's wonderful for our customers and our physicians to engage and utilize our services for those things.
Right. Well, and I think that one of the challenges that I see, and I have had this challenge, is to what's unique about my company and what are the unique selling proposition, whatever many names for it, and then incorporate that in all the marketing materials, like you say, and advertising materials and just everything.
Right.
But it's difficult sometimes to determine what my unique selling proposition is.
It always is, and that's the thing. That's why you've got to write it out. Make that board and put up all the the keywords, the buzzwords about your company, and really engage on that one that you feel is different than others. And again, we use the word empowering when in reality that could be a synonym for generating more revenues for the company. Again, it's a word that we felt that could really express to what our goals are.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, we've been talking here with Phil Sanchez, the CEO of Avantis Care, and I think he's given us a number of good ideas and thoughts about business in general, and particularly the marketing part. I hope you picked up on that. And if you didn't, remember that we do archive our shows, and you can go back and listen again. But we're going to take another short break here and then come back and visit with Phil, talk a little bit about, in general, work-life balance and some of the things he does beyond just building this great business. So please stay with us.
Tri-County Services provides services to children and adults with mental illnesses, substance abuse disorders, and intellectual developmental disabilities in Montgomery, Liberty, and Walker counties. Offices are located in Conroe, Cleveland, Liberty, and Huntsville. Some mental health services offer focus on resilience and recovery. Services and supports for individuals with intellectual development disabilities focus on skill development and independence. Tri-County Services offers 24/7 crisis intervention and evaluation with Crisis Hotline 1-800-659-6994. And their mobile crisis outreach team. Psychiatric crisis treatment is available at Psychiatric Emergency Treatment Center in Conroe. Substance abuse services include treatment for both youth and adults. Substance abuse prevention classes are also provided for younger children and teenagers. Peer support services for veterans are also offered by Tri-County Services. For more information about all programs provided by Tri-County Services, call 936-521-6100 or visit our website at www.tricountyservices.org.
You're listening to Lone Star Internet Radio. Now for your daily weather report. Today is Monday, July 7th, 2014. Today's weather forecast: there's a 30% chance of showers and thunderstorms, mainly after 1 p.m., mostly cloudy with a high near 92. Later on tonight will be mostly cloudy with a low around 75.
This weather forecast is brought to you by Donna Wick Public Relations. You've seen the billboards. That's right, Wicked Publicity. Contact them today at 832-326-1965 and visit them at wickedpublicity.com.
Hello, this is Dennis Nelson, inviting you to come with me through the doorway of imagination and into the theater of the mind. The Players Theater Company Old Time Radio Hour presents a play every Saturday night at 7 p.m. on Lone Star Internet Radio. Be it drama or comedy, thriller or love story, every exciting episode is carefully chosen straight from the golden age of radio and performed live by talented actors, musicians, and sound effects crew. Every sound you hear will be 100% live and homemade. Anything can happen. So join us, please, every Saturday night at 7 p.m. for the Players Theater Company Old Time Radio Hour, right here on Lone Star Internet Radio.
This is Rick Schissler, your Silver Fox advisor here in Montgomery County. We're here on the weekly business hour, and we've been visiting with Phil Sanchez, CEO of Avantis Care. And we've had a great morning this morning, Phil. I want to thank you. It's been some good advice that you've given our folks. And now I want to kind of slow down just a minute. And we know that you've been out there working hard for a number of years. And what do you do, though? And I always like to give advice on the work-life balance. How do you balance things out? Tell us some unique things or something different you do. You've mentioned you have a family, so talk to us a little bit about all that.
Yeah, I think the one most amazing thing would have to probably be my wife right now. She is the most patient woman with everything going on, and she has given us the availability to continually create this business. But again, it's about finding that balance, which is sometimes extremely difficult. But you have to have the understanding that it's family first and then your business next. But sometimes it becomes very difficult to put that that game plan, like we talked about, in a working order, because it is a very difficult balance. But again, I have to give it all up to my wife. She's extremely patient. She's so supportive, and she's always allowing us to continually grow our organization and giving me that freedom to go out there and be successful. So like they always say, behind every great man, there's even a greater woman. And I 100% agree to that. So,
well, you're an advocate of that. Let me ask you a loaded question. Does she happen to be a doctor's daughter?
No, she doesn't. She's not a doctor's daughter. No, she'd probably be annoyed with that fact, because I'd be trying to solicit her then for her.
Well, the reason I bring that up, because my wife her dad was a physician.
Yeah.
And so she has that patience, because back in the day, in an earlier generation, they worked a lot of hours.
Right.
And so when I have to work and Saturdays, and sometimes even a bit on Sunday, occasionally, not as much anymore, but she always seems to have the patience.
Right.
Now, she may have issues, and she waits and springs them on me, but she's very patient, and I think that's important in a family relationship, that especially when you're building a life together,
right,
building a business together. And the two kind of, when you're an entrepreneurial type person, right, it just sort of all ties itself up in together.
Right, exactly. And again, it's a new business, and this is not necessarily a new relationship, but we are newly married, and so again, our responsibilities right now are just each other as we're growing our family. Though we're very excited for that next chapter, but again, it's allowed us to be extremely supportive with both of our ventures. And she's an entrepreneur as well. I mean, she is, I always joke with her. I'm like, hey, I cannot wait. One day I'm going to be a stay-at-home dad and you could just take over the world, because she is a very much a huge entrepreneur. She is, like I said, a very patient and wonderful woman. So it's great that we both have that same spirit too, that we can share.
To be fair, I need to, because I like to disclose everything, and I don't want to use the word transparent, because that's kind of a buzzword right now that is meaningless, especially when you go to Washington. But anyway, no political statements to that. But you've had some other businesses. I mean, I'd call you a serial entrepreneur, because I get called that because I had multiple businesses, didn't even know what that was initially. But you've done some other businesses. You've done some other startups.
Yeah, we've engaged in different startups that we've created and sold, and they've been on completely different industries, and we've had some successes and we've had some failures with it. Again, I believe that from the failures, you learn from them, and you've got to get back up and have a boxer mentality, and you get hit but you get right back up. But again, I've realized that the course that we're taking now, and again, it goes back to volatile industry and opportunities. I've really been able to identify that in the healthcare industry, and that's what has made us taking that success formula of creating companies and integrating it into this industry. So we're extremely excited for that.
Well, my take on it, if I can, from the cheap seats, is those other experiences that you had really gave you the experience, and now you've really got an opportunity in front of you that experience, which I believe you can't buy. You just have to be there. You've now got a chance to utilize it and hit that home run that we all dream about.
Right, and I agree. I mean, I think it is, putting your hands on something and actually creating something and being in the trenches of it allows you to really learn in a much different environment than trying to read about it or from an academic point of view. But don't get me wrong, I'm all for the academic aspect of it, but again, it's when you're actually molding it and creating it from your hands, you can learn a lot more about what your what the successes are and what are the things you need to improve upon.
One of the things you mentioned too, and this is an area I always like to touch on, but I didn't realize till I talked to you just a bit ago, is some of these businesses you did with family. In this case, you mentioned a sister.
Right.
And I'm always interested about family dynamics because I grew up in a family business.
Sure.
So how were those dynamics in working with someone in your family?
Yeah, again, working in a family environment is a very unique, I won't say challenge, but it is a very unique situation to be in. Again, you surround yourself with people that have great resources and have great skill sets, and we were able to take advantage of both of those. With being in a family business, we utilized everyone's skill set, and then at the end of the day, from my point of view, I'm an entrepreneur and I want to continually grow and get into the next big thing, and that allowed me to kind of catapult myself into this position now. But yeah, it's family businesses it's a unique environment. And you have to, work diligently together, and you can have some great stories at the end of the day with that too, as well.
Well, I agree with you. I think, but when you're starting a business, one of the advantages I found of working with family you still got to have the round peg and the round hole. I mean, things got to fit.
Sure.
And if you each bring skill sets that are different to you, you can but the difference in hiring someone with the right sets, if that person, the family member has, and this has been my experience, is that there's a certain level of trust, and you just seem to work. If you're close enough and everything, it gives you a little bit of advantage, particularly when you start,
right,
if you do have the right mix of skills and things.
Absolutely, I agree.
Now, if you don't, boy, it goes off the track real fast.
Right, yeah. Well, the good thing is there's no HR behind you that will complain about anything that you say in a family business.
I like that a lot.
Right.
I have a legal background, and there are a lot of stories in there. Yeah,
I'm sure there could be some, if there was a fly on the wall, I'm sure there'd be some interesting dynamic conversations that it could say. But again, that's because I think family, though, is one thing is that you expect a lot out of each other.
Right.
So at the end of the day, you have high expectations for what you want out of each other. So again, in a family environment, that can be a huge advantage, or to have that mentality.
Yeah, I think you're exactly right. You've had some wonderful experiences in working with family. You've kind of done it all. One final question I have for today: if you could give one piece of advice to someone who was thinking about starting a business, which you've done more than once or twice, what would that piece of advice be?
I think the best thing to do in the position of wanting to become a business owner is you have to have a very detailed game plan, and you have to be patient, but you have to think it through before you make that first step. You really got to put yourself in a position to, write it out, actually visualize and see exactly what you want out of your own organization. And I mean, you got to have great resources, accounting, legal, all those things have to be in your plan to really understand that there is that opportunity. And I think you can identify all those things, and then, your next big thing is execution. You've got to execute exactly how you have your plan laid out, and be willing to put in that hard work and realize that you're doing this for not just yourself, but for what you want to provide for that customer. So I think that's the big thing. Game plan it, write it out, see what you have, get those resources together, and then execute it. And then whether you like coffee or whatever to keep you up, do that, and then just keep going and have a very, very, very patient wife or, your significant other.
Well, I'll tell you something, Phil, that's well said. In fact, I may just cut that part of the conversation today out and play it for some clients and potential clients. That's very well said. Phil, I want to thank you a whole lot this has been a great program today, and thank you for taking time to join us here. And if people, by chance, we had a physician or somebody wants to learn more about your company, how do they get in touch with you?
Yeah, and that's, again, going back to the technology side of things, the one wonderful thing about our website, which is avantiscare.com, and the Avantis, Latin word for keep going, basically, Avante. So where it came from, where it derived from, is always going forward. But it's AVANTIS and then care.com. And on there's actually a free practice analysis for physicians. They can actually go online, fill out a form, and it'll actually grade their practice compared to where they are and where they want to be. And it gives them a scorecard right off the bat. And that information is invaluable, and it's free for the physician to take advantage of. And there's plenty of contact information throughout the site where they can get a hold of us. And we just want to be a resource at the end of the day. And if they can use our services, then we're very excited to have them as a client.
Well, that's great news, and I think the idea of providing that kind of a no obligation type thing, you must attract a lot. I would hope attract a lot of them to take the time to do that. So,
absolutely.
Again, thank you for being on the show today,
Thank
and
you as
ladies
well.
and gentlemen, I want to thank you for joining us this morning. And I wish you and your family a great week as you come up in this week after the 4th of July. And thank you for joining us today. And until next week, keep your dial right where it is on Montgomery County's Community Radio, IR Lone Star, from the heart of downtown Conroe.
Hey everyone, this is Tina, your host from Retro Saturdays. I wanted to invite you to visit the Lone Star Studios here in downtown Conroe, Texas. We're all volunteers here, and we need your help in serving the Montgomery County area. Radio media is a fun field to be in. Lone Star Internet Radio serves Montgomery County with news, current events, local programming, and of course, music. If you are interested in volunteering and sharing your talents in media, go to irlonestar.com and let us hear from you. Lone Star Internet Radio, serving Montgomery County from the heart of downtown Conroe.